He slammed his fist on the counter so hard the coffee cups rattled. Every head in that cafe turned. Daniel Hayes, a quiet man who hadn't raised his voice in 5 years, was standing between a laughing stranger and a woman who had stopped breathing from humiliation. "Say that again," Daniel said. Low, steady, dangerous. The stranger went silent. So did the whole room. But what happened after that moment? What Sophia said to Daniel months later, on a rainy porch, that's the part that will leave you sitting in silence, staring at the wall. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Subscribe if you're staying till the end. Daniel Hayes had a rule. Don't get involved. It wasn't that he was a cold man. Anyone in Willow Creek would tell you the opposite. He was the man who showed up when your truck broke down on a Tuesday night in January. He was the one who fixed your furnace without adding a dime for the after-hours call. He was the neighbor who shoveled the Kowalski widow's driveway every February without ever being asked and without ever mentioning it. But getting involved in arguments in other people's drama, in the loud, messy business of conflict, that was a line Daniel had drawn years ago quietly without ceremony, the way a man draws most of his important lines. He had enough of his own mess to carry. How was 38 years old. A widower. The father of a 7-year-old girl named Emma, who still sometimes cried for her mother in the middle of the night. He ran a one-man equipment repair shop on the south side of town, worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and spent every Sunday making pancakes shaped like animals because Emma said regular round pancakes were boring daddy. He wasn't looking for anything. He wasn't looking for trouble. He wasn't looking for love. I was just looking for a decent cup of coffee on a Thursday evening after a 12-hour shift that had wrecked his lower back and his patience in equal measure. That's the only reason Daniel was in Patty's Corner Cafe at 6:47 p.m. on a Thursday in early October. Not fate, not destiny, just a bad back and a need for caffeine. The cafe was half full. The usual crowd, a few retired men at the window table, arguing about the county commissioner's new road project, a young couple sharing a slice of pie. A woman in the corner reading something thick and serious with her glasses pushed up on her nose. Daniel took a stool at the counter, dropped his jacket on the seat beside him, and rubbed the back of his neck with one hand. "The usual, Danny," Patty called from behind the espresso machine without looking up. "Please," he said. "And something to eat. I forgot lunch again." "You forget lunch every day," Patty said, disapproving in that comfortable way she had. Like a woman who had been disapproving of the same people for 30 years and had made peace with it. "I know. Emma's gonna grow up and find out her daddy only eats dinner." "She already knows," Daniel said. "She drew a picture of me at school, just eating a sandwich at night. The teacher asked what my hobbies were and Emma said eating late." Patty laughed. He almost did too. Almost. He was reaching for the sugar when the man walked in. Daniel noticed him the way you notice weather. Not because you're looking for it. Because something in the air changes. The man was maybe 45, broad in the shoulders, wearing a jacket that was too nice for Willow Creek and carrying himself like he knew it. He sat 2 stools down from Daniel, pulled out his phone, glanced at the menu on the wall with the kind of expression that said he'd already decided everything here was beneath him, and then he looked up. And he looked at Sophia. Sophia Miller was behind the counter that evening, because Patty's regular Thursday girl had called in sick, and Sophia lived 3 blocks away, and always said yes when anyone needed help. She worked at the bookstore on Main Street during the day. It was her real job, the one she loved, but she filled in at Patty's a few evenings a week, because that was the kind of person Sophia was. The kind who says yes. The kind who shows up. She was 27 years old. She had dark hair that she kept in a practical braid when she was working, warm brown eyes behind round glasses, and a laugh that once you heard it, you found yourself wanting to say something funny just to hear it again. She was also a plus-size woman. And the man 2 stools down from Daniel had apparently decided that was the most important thing about her. Daniel saw it happening before anything was said. He had spent enough years watching people to know the look. The slow up and down. The small smirk that formed. The posture that shifted into something more comfortable with itself, more entitled. Sophia didn't see it. She was writing down an order from the couple at the end of the counter, nodding, smiling at something the woman said. Then she turned and walked toward the man. "Hi there, welcome to Patty's. What can I get for you?" Her voice was warm, professional. She had the pad in her hand, pen ready. The man looked at her for a moment, that same slow look, and then he said it. Not quietly, not under his breath. Out loud. Clearly. With a smirk on his face, like he expected the room to agree with him. "Honey, you're already eating enough for both of us. How about you just get me a coffee and leave the pastries for the customers who need them?" The room went still. It was the kind of still that happens when something cuts through every ambient sound. All at once, the clatter of cups, the low hum of conversation, the sound of spoons against saucers. All of it just stopped, the way a needle lifted off a record. Sophia stopped too. She didn't move. Her pen was still poised over the pad. Her face. Daniel watched it went through three things in the space of 2 seconds. Surprise. Pain. And then that terrible familiar composure. That look he had seen on people who'd been hit in the same place so many times they'd learned to stand up faster. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just said quietly, "I'll get your coffee," and started to turn away. That was the moment Daniel's rule broke. Not gradually. Not after deliberation. It broke the way things break when they were already cracked all at once, without warning, with a sound nobody else heard but him. He turned on his stool. He looked at the man. "Say that again," he said. His voice was low. It was the voice he didn't use often. It was the voice that came from somewhere below ordinary conversation, from the place where a man keeps the things he doesn't usually let out. The man blinked, turned, looked at Daniel like he was something unexpected. "Excuse me. I said say it again." Daniel kept his hands flat on the counter. He wasn't going to touch the man. He knew that much about himself. But he wanted the man to see that he wasn't afraid, wasn't posturing, wasn't performing. He was just very, very serious. "Say what you just said to her. One more time. I want to hear it again." The man stared at him. The retired men by the window had stopped arguing about the road project. The young couple had put down their forks. Patty behind the machine stood perfectly still with a coffee cup in her hand. The man said, "Look, buddy, I was just—" "You were just what?" Daniel asked, still quiet. "Having a laugh, putting somebody down because you thought nobody would say anything, because she'd just take it and walk away." "It was a joke." "It wasn't a joke," Daniel said. "A joke is when both people can laugh. She's not laughing. You want to know what I see when I look at you. Right now, I see a man who walked into a room and decided the best way to feel good about himself was to make somebody else feel small. That's not funny. That's just sad." The man opened his mouth, closed it. Something shifted in his expression, not remorse exactly, more the look of someone who has just realized they miscalculated. "I think," Daniel said, "you should pay for your coffee that you haven't ordered yet. Leave a good tip for the woman you just insulted, and go find somewhere else to sit with yourself." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the man reached into his jacket pocket. He put a $20 bill on the counter. He stood up. He walked out. The bell above the door rang when it closed behind him. The sound came back slowly to the room. A scrape of a chair. A careful cough. The couple at the end of this counter exchanged a glance and picked up their forks again. The retired men at the window returned to their argument, but quieter now, like they were respecting something they hadn't expected to witness. Daniel turned back to his coffee. His heart was pounding not from anger, but from the particular exhaustion of having done something that cost you something even when it was right. Sophia was standing very still a few feet away. She was looking at him. He looked back. "You didn't have to do that," she said. Her voice was careful, like she wasn't sure what he was yet. "I know," he said. "He's probably just going to go find another café and do the same thing to somebody else." "Probably," Daniel agreed. "But not here, and not tonight." She looked at him for another moment. Then she said, "What do you want to eat? You said you forgot lunch." And he realized she'd heard that whole conversation with Patty. "Whatever you think is good," he said. "The turkey melt is good," she said. "Patty makes the bread herself." "Then that." She wrote it down. She walked away. And Daniel Hayes, who had a rule about not getting involved, sat at the counter and thought about how strange it was that the most alive he'd felt in 5 years had just happened in a cafe on a Thursday night when all he wanted was coffee. He left a tip too. I was almost at the door when Sophia said, "Hey." He turned. She was standing behind the counter with the $20 bill the man had left, and she was holding it out. "He left this," she said, "but I don't want it." "Then keep it," Daniel said. "I don't want it," she said again more firmly. "It doesn't feel clean." He thought about that. "Give it to Patty," he said, "for the bread." Something changed in Sophia's face. Not a smile exactly. Something quieter and warmer than a smile. "Okay," she said. He nodded. He pushed open the door. He was 3 steps out into the cool October air when he heard the bell ring again behind him, and her voice. "I'm Sophia." He turned around. She was standing in the doorway, one hand on the frame. The light from the cafe was behind her. "Daniel," he said, "you come in here often." "I forgot lunch again today," he said. "So probably tomorrow too." She laughed. And that was the laugh, the one that made you want to say something funny, just to hear it again. He walked to his truck. He sat behind the wheel for a full minute before he started the engine. He didn't know what had just happened. He only knew it was the first time in a long time he'd driven home feeling like the world might not be entirely done with him yet. What? Daniel didn't know. What he had no way of knowing, as he pulled out of the parking lot of Patty's Corner Cafe that October Thursday, was that Sophia had gone directly to the back of the cafe after he left and stood at the sink for 5 minutes, with the water running cold over her wrists, the way she did when she needed to feel something steady. Because she had learned over 27 years not to let people see what their words did to her. She had learned to compose her face in under 3 seconds. She had learned to say, "I'll get your coffee," and turn away and let the wound close privately, like she always did. Like she had always done since she was 12 years old, and a boy in her class told her she was too fat to be on the team photo, and everyone had laughed, and she had smiled because she didn't know what else to do. She was good at it now. The composure. What she was not prepared for was Daniel. Not for what he'd said, though. What he'd said had been exactly right. But for the fact that he had said it at all. She had been in that situation before. Enough times that she had built a kind of internal damage assessment system. A quiet voice in her head that watched each scenario and said, "Nobody's going to say anything. They never do. Just breathe. This is temporary. He'll leave. They all leave." The voice had been wrong tonight, and Sophia, standing at the sink with cold water over her wrists, was having a hard time knowing what to do with that. He was just a man, she told herself, who had coffee and ate a turkey melt and left. She would probably never see him again. She saw him the next evening. He came in at the same time, 6:47. She would learn later was almost always what time he showed up after work, and sat at the same stool, and Patty handed him his coffee before he even asked. He nodded at Sophia when she came behind the counter. She nodded back. "Turkey melt again?" she asked. "Is it still good?" "It's always good," she said. "It was good yesterday. It's good today." "Then yeah," he said. She wrote it down. That was it. But before he left, he stopped at the end of the counter where she was refilling the napkin dispensers, and he said, "How are you?" 2 words. Simple. And Sophia, who had dozens of automatic responses to that question. "Fine. Good busy. Can't complain," stood there with a stack of napkins in her hand and took a fraction of a second too long to answer. "Better than yesterday," she said. He nodded like that was the most honest thing anyone had said to him all week. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." And he left. By the 3rd Thursday, Patty was watching the whole thing with the practiced eye of a woman who had run a cafe for 25 years and had seen every variation of 2 people trying not to show interest in each other. "You know, he asked me about you," Patty said to Sophia while Daniel's truck was still visible pulling out of the parking lot. Sophia kept her eyes on the counter she was wiping. "What did he ask? If you worked here regular or just sometimes?" "What did you tell him?" "I told him just sometimes." Patty paused. "And then I told him you work at the bookstore on Main Street Monday through Saturday, open at 9. Sophia looked up. Patty. I'm old, Patty said pleasantly. I don't have time to watch people be stupid about each other. He came into the bookstore on a Saturday. He stood in the doorway for a moment. That same stillness he carried, that settled quality, like a man who had learned not to rush anything. And then he walked to the front desk where Sophia was organizing a new shipment of hardcovers. Hi, he said. Hi, she said. Patty told you, didn't she? She told me. He rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry about that. Don't be, Sophia said. What are you looking for? He hesitated. My daughter, he said. Emma, she's 7. She's been struggling to read and she gets frustrated because she wants to read chapter books, but the words trip her up and she shuts down when that happens. I don't know what to. I've tried helping her, but I'm not. He stopped, started again. I'm better with machines than with words. Something happened in Sophia's chest that she was not prepared for, not because of what he said, because of how he said it, the honesty of it, the careful vulnerability of a man admitting something that was hard to admit, not that he'd failed, but that he wanted to do better and didn't know how. How old is Emma again? She asked. 7, almost 8 in March. Does she like animals? She would live in a barn if I let her. Sophia turned to the shelves behind her with the certainty of someone who knew every book in the store the way other people know their own house. She pulled 3 books and set them on the counter. Start with these, she said. The stories are exciting enough that she won't notice she's working. The chapters are short, which helps it gives her wins faster. And if she gets stuck, don't correct her. Just read the sentence out loud yourself. Normal pace, like you're just reading along, and let her hear it. Kids learn from the sound before they learn from the correction. Daniel looked at the books. Then he looked at her. How do you know all that? I struggled to read when I was young, she said simply. Nobody did what I just told you. I figured it out alone. He was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be, she said. It made me love books more than I probably would have otherwise. You fight for something, it means more. He bought all 3 books. He stood at the door for a moment and looked back. Thank you, Sophia. Tell Emma I said hi, she said, even though she doesn't know me yet. He almost smiled. Then he left. And Sophia stood at the counter and thought, don't do this. He is a widower with a little girl and more grief in him than he shows, and you will fall, and there will be nobody there when you land. She thought it clearly. She thought it firmly. And then Emma walked through the door the following Saturday, with her father holding the first book Sophia had recommended, with a question about the ending that needed answering. And Sophia forgot every single warning she had given herself. Because the little girl looked up at her with her father's same serious eyes and said, Are you the lady who picked my books? I am, Sophia said. Emma considered this. They were good, she said. I finished the first one. Can I have another one? Daniel stood behind his daughter with his hands in his pockets and said nothing. But Sophia saw it, the thing he was hiding behind the stillness. He was proud, not of the books, of his daughter. And Sophia thought, I am in so much trouble. She was right. She was absolutely, completely right. And she walked into it anyway. 3 weeks after Emma walked into the bookstore and changed the calculation of everything, Daniel Hayes developed what he privately called a Saturday problem. Every Saturday morning, he told himself he was not going to the bookstore. Every Saturday morning, Emma woke up, ate her cereal, looked at him across the kitchen table with those serious dark eyes and said, Can we go see Sophia today? And Daniel, who had survived 5 years of grief by being disciplined and consistent and emotionally airtight, said yes every single time. Because it was for Emma. Because Emma was reading better. Because Emma had finished her 2nd book and needed a 3rd. That's what he told himself. Sophia knew better. She didn't say it. But she knew. She knew because of the way he always came in with Emma in front of him, like the little girl was the official reason, the documented excuse, the permission slip. She knew because he always stayed longer than a book recommendation required. She knew because he asked questions about Sophia's opinion on things, about what she was reading herself, about small details she mentioned once that she didn't think anyone was keeping track of. But Daniel kept track. That was something she was learning about him. He paid attention the way most people didn't. "You remembered that," she said one Saturday in late October when he referenced something she had mentioned 3 weeks earlier about a novel she'd loved in college. "Yeah," he said simply. "Most people don't." He looked at her. "I'm not most people." He said it without arrogance, just as a fact. And Sophia felt something shift in her chest so precisely that she had to look down at the book in her hands to hide whatever was happening in her face. Emma was in the children's section at the back of the store, lying on her stomach on the floor, reading legs in the air, completely unbothered by the adult world. "She's good," Daniel said, watching his daughter. "She's better than good," Sophia said. "She's a reader now. That's different. That's a thing that stays." He was quiet for a moment. "Her mom used to read to her every night," he said. Then he stopped, like he hadn't planned to say it, like it slipped out the way things do when you're somewhere comfortable enough to stop guarding every word. Sophia didn't rush to fill the silence. She had learned that about grief, that it needed space, not response. "She still asks me to sometimes," he said. "And I do. But I don't do the voices the way her mom did. I'm just reading the words." "She doesn't care about the voices," Sophia said quietly. He looked at her. "She cares that you're there," she said. "Doing it. That's what she'll remember." Daniel didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. And in the back of the store, Emma flipped a page completely unaware that something between two adults was shifting quietly and irrevocably, like tectonic plates moving in the dark. The first time Daniel stayed past closing it was an accident. He had been helping Sophia move a heavy shelving unit that had been leaning 3 degrees off vertical for 2 weeks. It was a 5-minute job that turned into 40 minutes because the unit's back bracket was stripped, and Daniel had looked at it for 20 seconds and said, "I can fix that." And Sophia had said, "You don't have to," and he had already started. Emma sat on the floor nearby, reading, commentating occasionally on the book, in tones of great personal investment. "He shouldn't trust her," she announced to nobody in particular at one point. "She's going to betray him, I can tell." "Don't spoil it for yourself," Sophia called from where she was handing Daniel the tools he asked for. "I'm not spoiling it," Emma said reasonably. "I'm predicting." Sophia laughed. Daniel on the floor with a bracket and a screwdriver said nothing, but she caught the expression he was hiding behind his work. The quiet, helpless, open look of a man watching his daughter be herself and feeling something enormous about it. That was the moment Sophia understood that she was not going to be able to protect herself from this. She had tried. She had made an argument to herself that was logical and solid and correct. A man who was still carrying his wife. A little girl who needed stability, not complication. A town that would have opinions. A version of herself that had been disappointed enough times to know better. The argument was still correct. She just couldn't feel it anymore. After the shelving unit was fixed, and Emma had been loaded half asleep into Daniel's truck. He stood at the door of the bookstore for a moment. "Thank you for letting me do that," he said. "Thank you for doing it," she said. "I mean..." He stopped. Tried again. "I mean for letting me come in here every week. Emma looks forward to it all week." She told her teacher her favorite place is the bookstore. "That's because she's becoming the right kind of person," Sophia said. He looked at her. "She has a good dad," Sophia added. Something moved across his face. A flicker of something undefended just for a second before his composure came back. "I try," he said. "I know you do," she said. "It shows." He left. She locked the door. She stood in the empty store with the light still on and thought, "I am completely done for. I am so done for." Then November arrived and brought with it something neither of them had planned. Emma got sick. Nothing serious. A fever, a scratchy throat. The ordinary misery of a second grader in November, but it kept her home from school, and it meant she couldn't go to the bookstore on Saturday. And Daniel texted to cancel, with the kind of apologetic over-explanation of a man who was not sure what the etiquette was for canceling a plan that wasn't officially a plan. Sophia responded, "No worries at all. Hope she feels better. Tell her I said the hero in book 4 needs her to get well soon, because nobody else has reached his chapter yet. She hit send. She stared at her phone. She thought that was too much. That was cute and too much, and he's going to read that and think he responded 40 seconds later. She actually sat up straighter when I read that to her. First time in 2 days. Thank you. Then 10 minutes later. Can I ask you something? She stared at that message for a full 15 seconds. Go ahead, she typed. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, do you want to get coffee sometime, not at Patty's, because Patty will tell everyone. Somewhere that's just us. Sophia read this message 3 times. She thought about every warning she had ever given herself. She typed, yes. She put the phone face down on the counter. She pressed both hands flat against the wood and breathed. Then she picked the phone back up because she had forgotten to hit send. She hit send. Their first real conversation. The one that happened at a coffee place 40 minutes outside Willow Creek, where nobody knew either of them, lasted 3 hours and 40 minutes. They talked about everything and nothing in the way that only happens when 2 people are simultaneously trying to be careful and completely failing at it. He told her about growing up in rural Ohio, about learning to fix things from his father, about the way his hands felt more honest to him than his words. She told him about growing up as the girl who was always a little too much, too big, too loud in her opinions, too earnest about books and ideas, in a school where that wasn't an asset. You were probably the most interesting person in the room, he said. I was definitely the most avoided person in the room, she said. Those are sometimes the same thing, he said. People avoid what they don't know how to handle. She looked at him. You're more perceptive than you let on, she said. I had a lot of quiet years, he said. You pay attention when you're not talking. She asked him about his wife. She asked carefully, the way you ask about a wound you're not sure has healed. His name for her was always Claire. Never my late wife, never the clinical distance of that phrase. Just Claire. Like she was still present tense even when he talked about her in the past. She was funnier than me, he said. I'm not funny, she balanced that out. You're a little funny, Sophia said. When, the pancake shapes. He blinked. How do you know about the pancake shapes? Emma told me, she said. She said you make animal pancakes every Sunday, and you're very serious about it. I'm very serious about it, he confirmed without irony. That's funny, Sophia said. He thought about it. I guess it is, he said, like he was discovering something. Then he asked her the question she hadn't expected. Has anyone ever have you been in a relationship that was serious? She looked at her coffee cup. Once, she said. 2 years ago. He was good at first, or I thought he was. She paused. He introduced me to his friends as his friend. For 4 months. I was his girlfriend for 4 months, and his friend to everyone else. Daniel said nothing. And I let it go, she said. Because I told myself that's just how things go when you look like me. You get the private version, never the public one. She stopped. It sounds exactly like what it is, Daniel said. His voice was quiet, but there was something under it that wasn't quiet at all. And it shouldn't have been like that. No, she agreed. It shouldn't. For what it's worth, he said, I don't have a private version. She looked at him. What I am at Patty's counter is what I am everywhere, he said. I don't have the energy for 2 different people. Emma would see through it in about 3 minutes anyway. Sophia laughed, and then she felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Like she was being seen, not looked at. Seen. She drove home alone that night. They had taken separate cars, the Willow Creek precaution of 2 people not ready to be a public fact yet, and she sat in her parking spot for a long time after she turned off the engine. She thought, this is going to hurt. She thought it might not. She thought, you have thought that before. She thought, he's different. She thought you have thought that before too. And then she went inside and called her best friend Renee, who picked up on the second ring and said, tell me everything, before Sophia had said a single word, because Renee had been watching this develop for weeks from a safe informational distance and had run out of patience. It was good, Sophia said. How good? I talked for 3.5 hours and I don't know how. Oh no, Renee said. What do you mean, oh no? I mean, oh no for you, Renee said. Because you're already in it. You've been trying not to be, and you're already completely in it. Sophia didn't argue. Because Renee was right. She was already in it, and so was he. She just didn't know how deep yet. She found out 3 days later. Emma's fever came back worse this time. 103. The kind that made the doctor say, "Let's keep an eye on this," which is the most terrifying 7 words a single parent can hear. Daniel spent 2 nights sitting next to Emma's bed. He didn't sleep. He just sat there the way he had learned to sit with difficult things quietly, because there was nothing else to do. At 2 in the morning on the second night, he texted Sophia. I didn't plan to. He wasn't sure why he did. He hadn't texted anyone in the middle of the night in 5 years. He typed, "She's okay. Doctor says the fever should break by morning. Just hard to sleep." He almost deleted it. He sent it instead. Her response came in 4 minutes, which meant she wasn't asleep either. "I'm glad she's okay. I'm sorry you're sitting up alone." He stared at those words. Then, "Tell me something. Anything. Just so the room isn't quiet." She sent him the plot of the most dramatic novel she'd read that year, summarized in texts in real time, complete with her personal outrage at the choices made by the protagonist in Chapter 11. It took 40 minutes. By the end of it, Emma's breathing had steadied, and Daniel had laughed 3 times silently in the dark so he wouldn't wake her. At 3:20 a.m. he texted, "She's asleep." "Thank you." She responded, "Go sleep, Daniel." He typed, "I don't sleep well." She typed, "I know, but try." He put the phone down. He looked at his daughter, finally peaceful under 2 blankets. He thought, I am so far gone. He thought Claire would have liked her. He didn't know where that thought came from, but it arrived fully formed and settled into him without apology. And instead of feeling like a betrayal, it felt like something unlocking. That was the night everything changed between them, though they were in different houses, and neither of them said so out loud. By December, they were talking every night. Not long calls. Sometimes just a few texts. Sometimes a voice message because it was faster. But every night. Consistent in the way that a habit is consistent, except that habits feel like obligation, and this felt like need. Emma noticed. Children always notice. She didn't say anything directly. She was 7, not obtuse, but she began including Sophia in her future planning, in the casual, unquestioned way that children include things they've decided are permanent. "When we go to the Christmas market, Sophia come?" Emma asked one evening at dinner. Daniel looked up from his plate. "Why do you want Sophia to come?" Emma looked at him like this was a ridiculous question. "Because she knows what things are good," she said. "She'd know which stalls to stop at." Daniel said, "I'll ask her." "Okay," Emma said, satisfied, and returned to her potatoes. Daniel sat with his fork in his hand for a moment. He texted Sophia that night, "Emma wants you to come to the Christmas market with us. She says you'd know which stalls are worth stopping at." Sophia responded, "She's completely right. I would." Then, "Is this you asking me?" He looked at that text. He typed, "Yes." She responded. Then yes. The Christmas market was the first time they were out in public together as something that could be observed. Not a date technically. An outing with Emma, which was also technically a date. Willow Creek was a small town. People saw them. People talked. Daniel knew they would. He had known since the drive to the market that this would happen, that they would be seen, that the machinery of small-town observation would start turning. He knew, and he had come anyway. What he hadn't anticipated was the specific person they would run into. Gary Pullman was 52, a livestock feed supplier, and a man who had gone to high school with Daniel, and had never fully updated his opinion of anyone from that era. He appeared between 2 stalls with a cup of cider, and a wife who looked mortified in advance of whatever was about to come out of his husband's mouth. "Danny," Gary said, clapping Daniel on the shoulder. Then he looked at Sophia. Then, and the pause was not subtle, back at Daniel. This is Sophia," Daniel said. "Right," Gary said. Right. Another look. "And you two are?" "We're here for the market," Daniel said. Gary's mouth arranged itself into something between a smirk and a question. Sure. Good for you, Danny." He said it with a specific weight. The weight of someone communicating an opinion they're pretending not to have. Daniel looked at him. "Gary," he said pleasantly. "I've known you since we were 16. I know exactly what that tone means, and I don't have time for it tonight. Say something real or move along. Your wife looks cold." Gary blinked. His wife said, "It was nice seeing you, Danny," and steered her husband sideways into the crowd with the practiced efficiency of a woman who had been doing this for 30 years. Daniel turned back. Sophia was standing very still. "Sorry about that," he said. "You don't have to apologize for him," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm apologizing to you, not for him." She looked at him for a moment. Emma, oblivious, tugged at Daniel's sleeve and said, "Dad, that stall has kettle corn." "Yeah," Daniel said without looking away from Sophia. "Let's go." And he put his hand briefly, plainly, without drama, at the small of Sophia's back as they walked. She felt it like a signal, like someone transmitting something on a frequency she had stopped believing existed. They didn't talk about Gary Pullman again that night. They didn't need to. What Daniel had done said more than any conversation could have, and Sophia had spent enough of her life having the private version of things to recognize the public one when it finally appeared. She was quiet on the drive home. Daniel drove. Emma slept in the back seat, and she spent the 20 minutes of that drive doing something she had tried not to do since October. She let herself want this, not hope for it, not analyze it, want it. It was terrifying. It was the best feeling she'd had in years. 2 days before Christmas, Daniel knocked on the door of her apartment at 7 p.m. with Emma beside him and a slightly lopsided wreath in his hands that Emma had made at school and declared was for Sophia's door because she doesn't have one. Sophia opened the door. She looked at the wreath. She looked at Emma. Emma said, "I made it. The bow is crooked, but that's because Marcus bumped me." "It's perfect," Sophia said. "Dad said you'd say that," Emma reported. Sophia looked at Daniel. He shrugged. Just barely. One shoulder. She stepped back and opened the door wider. "Do you want to come in?" she said. Emma walked in immediately, already cataloging the bookshelves. Daniel stood in the doorway for a moment. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure," she said. He came in, and the wreath went on her door. And that was Christmas. She thought later, lying awake at midnight with a book open on her chest, that she had not read a single word of this is the most dangerous position you have ever put yourself in. You have let this man and his daughter into your apartment and your evenings, and the part of you that you keep protected. She thought if this goes wrong, it will be the kind of wrong that changes you, she thought. But if you keep protecting yourself from everything that could go wrong, you will never have anything that could go right. She thought he drove 40 minutes to a different town so you could get coffee without being observed. He put his hand on your back in front of Gary Pullman. His daughter made you a wreath. She thought these are not the actions of a man who keeps people in a private category. She was right. But she was also about to discover that Daniel Hayes had fears of his own ones he had never said aloud to anyone that he had carried for 5 years in the sealed chamber of a man who had learned to handle everything alone. She would find out in January. And when she did, it would shatter something between them, not permanently and not completely, but enough that both of them would have to decide what they were willing to rebuild. That was coming. But tonight, for the first time in longer than she could name, Sophia Miller fell asleep without the quiet voice in her head telling her to expect to be left. And in a house 12 minutes across town, Daniel Hayes sat on the edge of his bed in the dark and thought about a woman who had listened to him for 40 minutes at 2 in the morning through a text screen because he couldn't sleep and felt something he had been running from since Claire died. He felt lucky. He sat with that for a long time. Then he lay down. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in 5 years, he slept through the night without waking once. January came in cold and mean. The way January always does in a small American town. Not dramatic, just relentless. The kind of cold that gets into your joints and your mood and stays there. Daniel had been quieter since New Year's. Sophia noticed on the 3rd of January. She noticed again on the 7th. By the 12th, she had stopped telling herself she was imagining it. I was still texting, still calling, still showing up at the bookstore with Emma on Saturdays. But there was something beneath the surface of him that had changed, something slightly sealed off that hadn't been sealed before Christmas, and she didn't know what it was or what she had done to cause it. She ran through the options at 2 in the morning, the way women do when they care about someone, and something feels wrong. She went through every conversation, every text, every moment at the Christmas market, every second of the evening they had spent in her apartment with the wreath, and Emma cataloging her shelves. She looked for the things she had said or done or been that had shifted his temperature. She found nothing. That was somehow worse. On January 14th, she decided to stop waiting for him to tell her what was happening and ask directly. She had spent too much of her life managing other people's discomfort by staying quiet about her own. She was done with that. She called him at 8 in the evening after Emma's bedtime, which she had learned was the window when Daniel was himself, not dad mode, not work mode, just a man sitting in a quiet house with his thoughts. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she said. And then without preamble, without softening it, "Something's wrong. You've been different for 2 weeks. I need you to tell me what it is." Silence. Not long. Maybe 4 seconds. But in 4 seconds you can hear a lot about what someone is deciding. "I'm fine," he said. "Daniel." Another pause. "I don't want to..." He stopped. "What?" "I don't want to make this harder," he said. "Then it has to be." Her stomach dropped. Direct and immediate, like an elevator cable cut. "Make what harder?" she said. He didn't answer. "Daniel, if you're about to tell me something is ending, I need you to say it clearly. Don't make me guess." "It's not that," he said, fast, like that part mattered to him. "It's not that." "Then what is it?" She heard him exhale. The long, slow exhale of a man who has been holding something in his chest for 2 weeks and has finally run out of room. "I'm scared," he said. She waited. "I haven't been scared like this in a long time," he said. "And the last time I let myself feel this way about someone, she died. And I was there for all of it. I was there for every part of it. And I kept thinking I was strong enough, and I was, and then it was over, and I wasn't anything for a long time after that." Sophia didn't speak. "Emma was 2, he said. "Emma was 2 when Claire got sick, and 4 when she died. And I spent those 2 years being the thing that held everything together. I didn't grieve. I managed. And then when it was done, when there was no more managing to do, I went numb. For about a year, I was just numb." His voice was steady. The steadiness of someone who has worked very hard to be able to say hard things without falling apart. "And then I wasn't numb anymore," he said. "And I built something, me and Emma. It wasn't much, but it was stable. It was ours. And I told myself that was enough, and I meant it. And then I met you," he said. Sophia felt the weight of those 5 words. "And now I'm scared," he said. "Not of you, of what it means, of what happens if this..." He stopped again. "I have Emma to think about. She already calls you by name every day. She already expects you to be there on Saturday. She already trusts you. And if I do this wrong, then say that," Sophia said. Her voice was careful and clear. "Say you're scared. Say you don't know how to do this. Don't go quiet on me for 2 weeks, Daniel. I will always choose a hard conversation over silence. Every single time." A beat. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," she said. "Just don't disappear." "I wasn't trying to disappear." "I know," she said. "But that's what it felt like." Another silence. This one different. Less sealed. More open. "I haven't talked to anyone about Claire in a long time," he said. "You can talk to me," she said. "It doesn't bother you. Why would it bother me? Because you and I are." "Daniel," she said. "She was the most important person in your life for years. She's Emma's mother. She's not competition. She's part of who you are. I'm not asking you to close that door. I'm just asking to be let through a different one." He was quiet. Then, "You're better at this than I am. I've had more practice being honest about being scared," she said. You've had more practice pretending you're not." He made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Yeah," he said. "That's accurate." They talked for 2 more hours that night. Not about anything resolved. Resolution wasn't the point, but about the real things. The fear of losing something again. The fear of letting Emma attach to someone and having it not work. The particular loneliness of being a person who has had a good love and knows exactly what it feels like, and therefore knows exactly what they're risking when they try again. And Sophia told him the other side of it. The fear of being chosen provisionally. Of being someone's private option, but not their public one. Of loving someone and watching them slowly realize she wasn't what they wanted to bring forward into their life. "I need to know," she said at the end quietly. "If that's what this is, if I'm someone you like in private but can't quite commit to in public, I need to know now. Before Emma gets more attached. Before I do." Silence. She pressed Daniel. "It's not that," he said. His voice was different now, firmer, like something had locked into place. "Sophia, I introduced you to Gary Pullman at the Christmas market. You told him to move along." "Yeah," he said, "because I wasn't going to let him stand there and do that thing with his face, not with you standing next to me." She closed her eyes. "I'm slow," he said. "I move slow. I'm careful because I have to be, not because I'm hiding. But I'm not hiding you. I want you to know that." "Okay," she said. "Okay. Okay," she said again. And the something that had been sealed in him for 2 weeks broke open quietly, and he breathed in a way that told her she had been right to push. They hung up at 11. She lay in her dark apartment and stared at the ceiling and thought, "I believe him." She thought, "I hope that's not a mistake." She thought, "I believe him anyway." By the end of January, the town knew. Not because Daniel made an announcement. Not because Sophia told anyone. But because Willow Creek was a place where 2 people couldn't get coffee at Patty's together twice in a row without the information becoming communal property. The reactions were predictable in the way that small towns are predictable, which is to say, varied enough to be interesting, but shaped by exactly the forces you'd expect. Most people were fine. Mildly curious the way people are curious about any departure from routine. A few were genuinely warm. Patty, who had seen it coming from the beginning and felt personally vindicated, told Sophia one morning, "I knew it when he came in here the 2nd night in a row. Danny Hayes doesn't do anything twice unless it matters." And then there was the other kind. The comments started small. A look across a grocery store that lasted 1 second too long. A woman at the pharmacy who said to her companion, and not quite quietly enough, "That's the girl Daniel Hayes is seeing now," with a specific inflection on the word girl that contained everything she thought about it. Sophia had armor for this. She had spent 27 years building it. What she hadn't accounted for was that the armor was thinner now, because she cared more now, because there was something to lose now. And the things you say about someone when they have nothing invested just bounce off, but the same things land differently when they have skin in the game. She didn't tell Daniel about most of it. She handled it the way she always had: composure, forward motion, private inventory. But he found out. He found out on a Tuesday in late January when he stopped by the bookstore at lunch to drop off a book Emma had left there on Saturday. He walked in and immediately read something in Sophia's posture, that familiar calibration she did when she had been in contact with something that cost her, and he said, "What happened?" "Nothing," she said. "Sophia." She handed him Emma's book. It was on the shelf in the back. She must have set it down. "What happened?" he said again. She looked at him, measured something, then said, "A woman came in this morning. She's been in before. She bought a birthday card, and then she said casual, like it was nothing, that she hoped I knew what I was getting into. With a widower and a young child. That it was a lot of responsibility for someone my age." She paused. "And then she left." Daniel was very still. "She said that," he said. "She thought she was being helpful," Sophia said. "That's what made it worse. She wasn't mean about it. She was concerned, which is—" She stopped. "Which is somehow harder to be angry at." "What did you say to her?" "I said thank you, and I appreciated her concern." He looked at her. Because what else do I say, Daniel? She's a customer. She's 60 years old. She thinks she's looking out for you. She's not looking out for me, he said. His voice was that low register again, the one from the cafe. She's making assumptions about you, about what you can handle, about what you're capable of. I know. That's not concern, that's... He stopped himself, recalibrated. You shouldn't have to deal with that. I've been dealing with things like that my whole life, she said. I know, he said. And you shouldn't have had to do that either. She looked at him. There were two options now, and he knew it, and she knew it. He could get angry on her behalf and feel righteous, and that would be something, but it wouldn't be enough. Or he could do what he was about to do. He came around the counter. He stood in front of her. I want to be clear about something, he said. And I should have said this before now, so I'm saying it now. She waited. I'm not confused about what I'm doing, he said. I'm not easing into something with an exit plan. I'm not practicing. I'm not figuring out if you're serious enough to take seriously. I am 38 years old, and I have been paying attention to you since October, and I am here because I want to be here. Not despite who you are, because of who you are. She felt her throat tighten. I don't care what Linda Marchetti thinks, he said, or Gary Pullman, or whoever comes in next. They don't get a vote. Daniel. I'm not done, he said. I need you to hear me. Because I think you have spent so long being told in all the ways people tell each other things without words that you should be grateful for whatever you get. And I'm not offering you gratitude. I'm not offering you provisional. I'm offering you real. She pressed her lips together. Okay, he said. She nodded, just barely. He stepped back, gave her the space she needed. She said, You know this is going to keep happening. People are going to have opinions. People always have opinions, he said. That's not news. It doesn't bother you. He looked at her steadily. What bothers me, he said, is the idea of giving those opinions more weight than what I know is true. That bothers me. She exhaled. You're really not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Someone easier, she said. And then she caught herself. Because that was his word, his fear. The thing he had said on the phone at 8 in the evening, you could have someone easier. He caught it too. Something passed between them in the silence. Neither of us is easy, he said. No, she agreed. Works out then, he said. And for the first time in January, Sophia Miller laughed without anything underneath it that hurt. February came, and with it something nobody saw coming. The twist didn't announce itself. Twists never do in real life. They disguise themselves as ordinary Tuesdays and regular phone calls and small pieces of information that don't seem important until suddenly they are everything. It started with a phone call. Daniel got on a Thursday evening while Sophia was at his house for the first time, not as a visitor, not an official thing, but because Emma had called her that afternoon in a panic about a school project, and Sophia had come over to help and stayed for dinner because the pasta was already on, and it would have been strange to leave. It was the kind of evening that felt dangerously perfectly domestic. Emma was in the living room, building something architectural and complicated out of craft materials for her project. Sophia was helping Daniel wash dishes because she couldn't stand next to idle while someone else cleaned up. The kitchen was warm and loud, with the particular noise of a house that has people in it who are comfortable with each other. Then his phone rang. He dried his hands, looked at the screen, and something changed in his face. Not dramatically, not in a way Emma would have noticed, but Sophia was close enough to see it. He said, I need to take this, and walked out of the kitchen. She heard his voice in the hallway. Low, controlled. The voice of someone having a conversation they are carefully managing. She kept washing dishes. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself that for about 4 minutes. Then Daniel came back in. He put the phone on the counter. He picked up his dish towel. He said without looking at her, That was my brother-in-law. She kept her voice even. Claire's brother. Yeah. A pause. His name is Marcus. He lives in Denver. He and I have talked a handful of times since the funeral. He checks in. He's a good man. Okay, she said carefully. He's coming to Willow Creek, Daniel said. Next month. He wants to see Emma. Another pause. He heard someone told him about you. About us. She put down the dish she was holding. And, she said, he finally looked at her. He has some concerns, Daniel said. His words. The silence in the kitchen was different from any silence they had shared before. What kind of concerns? She said. Daniel set down the towel. He looked at the doorway where Emma was visible in the living room building her project oblivious. He lowered his voice. He's worried about Emma, he said. About another woman coming into her life. About whether it's too soon. About... He stopped. About me specifically, she said. He didn't answer immediately. Daniel. He asked how well I knew you, Daniel said. He asked how long we'd been seeing each other. He asked if I had thought about whether this was the right time. And did he ask what you thought? She said. He did. What did you tell him? I told him I thought it was the right time, Daniel said. I told him Sophia was... He stopped. Started again. I told him you were good for Emma, that Emma was happier, that you were someone I trusted. Sophia breathed. He wasn't convinced, she said. He's protective of Claire's memory, Daniel said. And of Emma. And I understand that. He watched his sister die. He watched Emma lose her mother. He's not wrong to care. No, she said. He's not. But he's also not the one making decisions about my life, Daniel said. She looked at him. I wanted you to know, he said. Because I don't keep things from you anymore. That's the deal we made in January. Hard conversations instead of silence. Something in her chest loosened. Yes, she said. That's the deal. I'm going to see him when he comes, Daniel said. We're going to talk. And I'm going to say what I said on the phone, but in person, and with more detail. What if he still has concerns? She said. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he has concerns, he said. And I respect them. And we move forward anyway. She looked at him for a long time. You're sure, she said. Sophia, he said, and his voice was tired but steady. The voice of a man who has been through enough to know what he means when he says things. I'm sure. Emma appeared in the doorway holding a lopsided papier-mâché structure. It's a lighthouse, she announced. Tell me it looks like a lighthouse. Daniel looked at it. It looks great, he said. Dad, does it look like a lighthouse? It looks like a very abstract lighthouse, Sophia said diplomatically. Emma pointed at her. That's the honest answer. She looked at her father. You could learn something. She disappeared back into the living room. Daniel and Sophia stood in the kitchen, and despite everything, the phone call and Marcus and the concerns and the weight of all of it, both of them were fighting back something that was not quite a smile. She's something, Sophia said quietly. She's everything, Daniel said, and then lowered just to Sophia. Don't let Marcus scare you. He doesn't scare me, she said. He looked at her. The things that could happen scare me, she corrected. Him specifically I can handle. Good, he said. They finished the dishes. Marcus Reeves arrived on a Saturday in the second week of February. He was 44, broad-shouldered like a man who had played football in college and kept the build without the sport, with his sister's eyes and a manner that was careful and watchful and not unfriendly, but not warm either. I had lunch with Daniel alone first. Sophia had offered to stay away, not as a retreat, she had told Daniel clearly, but because this was something between them that deserved its own space. Daniel had called her at 2 in the afternoon after the lunch. How was it? She asked. Hard, he said. Good, I think. Hard first. What did he say? He asked me if I was sure I wasn't replacing Claire, Daniel said. In Emma's life. Whether this was me looking for something to fill a gap. Her heart pulled tight. What did you tell him? I told him that was the wrong question, Daniel said. Claire isn't a gap. She's in Emma, and she's in me, and she's in this house. She's not replaceable, and I'm not trying to replace her. I'm trying to give Emma and myself. Sophia didn't say anything. He cried, Daniel said, surprised still by it. He didn't expect me to say that. He thought I was going to defend myself. He wasn't expecting. He said that was the most like Claire he'd heard me sound in years. Because Claire used to say things like that. That love isn't a fixed amount. That you don't run out. Her throat was tight. He wants to meet you, Daniel said. She inhaled. When? This afternoon, if you're willing. She stood in her apartment with the phone against her ear and thought about all the versions of this she had imagined, all the ways it could go, all the ways she could be found insufficient by the person who had most right to evaluate her. Okay, she said. You don't have to. I know, she said. I want to. She met Marcus at Daniel's house at 4 o'clock with Emma running between them both and talking constantly in the way that Emma talked when she was comfortable. All observations and opinions and sudden topic changes that required you to keep up or be left behind. Marcus watched Sophia with Emma for 10 minutes before he said a word to her directly. When he finally did, he said, "She calls you by name." "She does," Sophia said. "She used to not talk about anyone outside school or family," he said. "When Claire died, she kind of closed the circle, kept it small." Sophia nodded. "She told me about you on the phone last month," Marcus said. "I didn't ask, she just told me. She said Dad's friend Sophia knows what books are good. And she said it like you were just part of the sentence, like you were already real." Sophia watched Emma drag Daniel toward the yard, insisting he look at something she had found, and said quietly, "I know this is complicated." "It is," Marcus agreed. "I know I'm not Claire," she said. "I'm not trying to be." "I know," he said. "Danny told me about you, and I looked you up. I'll be honest. The bookstore, people in town." She met his eyes. And everyone says you're kind," he said. "Specific people said specific things. The guy at the hardware store said you helped his daughter find college prep books without charging her. The woman at the diner said you stayed an hour late, helping her close up one night during a hard week she was having. Patty said." He stopped. "You don't need me to list it." "No," she said. "But I appreciate that you checked." He looked at her. "I'm not going to pretend I don't have fears," he said. "Claire was my little sister. Emma is everything that's left of her in the world." "I understand," Sophia said. "But Danny?" He stopped. Looked at Daniel across the yard with his daughter. "Danny hasn't looked like that in 5 years. I forgot what that looked like. What it looked like when he had something to look forward to." Sophia followed his gaze. Daniel had crouched down next to Emma, examining whatever she had found, wearing the expression of a man who found everything his daughter discovered genuinely interesting. His shoulders were different. Not the careful, squared-off posture of a man carrying something heavy. Something easier. "Don't hurt them," Marcus said. Simply. Not threatening. Just clear. "That's not my plan," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm saying it anyway." "I know," she said. "I'd say the same thing." He nodded once. That was enough. Marcus stayed through dinner. Emma performed for him with the natural theatrical energy she deployed when she had an audience she trusted, and by the end of the meal he was laughing for real, not performing warmth, but actually feeling it at something Emma said about Daniel's inability to make a proper bow on a gift. "He uses too much tape," Emma said. "The paper is fine. The tape is a problem." "It's been a problem for 30 years, Marcus said. "Your aunt used to rewrap his gifts before the holidays." Emma's eyes went wide. "She did." "Every year," Marcus said. "She was sneaky about it. He never knew." Daniel sat across the table with his coffee cup, looking at his brother-in-law, and something passed between them that was old and complicated and private, in the best way. The look of two people who had survived something together and were finding carefully that they could add new things to what they already shared. After Marcus left after Emma was in bed, Daniel came downstairs and found Sophia in the kitchen with her jacket on ready to go. "Hey," he said. "He's good," she said. "He loves you both." "He does," Daniel said. "Thank you for doing that." "Don't thank me," she said. "He needed to meet me. That was right." He walked her to the door. She stepped outside. She was one step down when he said Sophia. She turned. He stood in the doorway, the light from inside the house around him, and he looked at her, the way he had been looking at her more and more lately. Not the careful, measured look of a man being disciplined, but something more open than that. Something that hadn't fully found its words yet. "Yeah," she said. He said, "I'm glad you didn't disappear." She looked at him. "When you went quiet in January," she said slowly, "I thought about it." He absorbed that. "I know," he said. "But I didn't," she said. "No," he said. "You called me and told me to stop being quiet." "I did," she said. A beat. "I'm glad you did," he said. She stood in the cold February air and felt something solid and warm settle in her chest. Not the anxious warmth of hoping. Something steadier. Something that felt like the beginning of trust. "Good night, Daniel," she said. "Good night," he said. She walked to her car. He stayed in the doorway until she pulled out of the driveway. She drove home through the dark, empty streets of Willow Creek, and she thought, this is real. This is actually real. And it is going to cost both of you something before it is done, because real things always do. She thought, I know that now, and I'm here anyway. She thought, that's the first time I've known the cost in advance and still chosen to stay. She thought maybe that's what love actually is. Not the absence of fear, just the decision to show up anyway. March came in quietly, the way the month before. Everything changes, usually does, without fanfare, without warning. Just another calendar page that nobody looks at carefully enough until afterward, when they look back and realize that was when everything shifted. Emma turned 8 on the 14th of March. Daniel had been planning the birthday for 6 weeks, with the specific intensity he brought to anything involving his daughter, researching bakeries, negotiating with Emma's 3 closest friends' parents about sourcing the exact shade of purple that Emma had declared was the only acceptable color for anything at her party. He had it handled. He had always handled things alone, because that was what he knew how to do. But somewhere around the second week of February, Emma had quietly taken matters into her own hands. She had asked Sophia to help. Not Daniel. Sophia. She had called Sophia from Daniel's phone on a Wednesday afternoon while Daniel was in the garage, and she had said, I need help planning my birthday, and Dad's going to do it wrong. Sophia had pressed her lips together to contain the laugh. What's he going to do wrong? She asked. He's going to get a cake from the grocery store, Emma said with the gravity of someone delivering terrible news. He always gets the grocery store cake. It tastes fine, but it's not special. I want something special. What do you want? Sophia asked. Emma described in precise detail a layered cake with purple frosting and small edible stars and a book on top, because she had decided she was now a reader, and that was her identity. She delivered this description with the confidence of someone who has thought about it for months, which she had. Sophia had called the bakery on Main Street the next morning. She had also quietly sourced the purple streamers. Daniel couldn't find coordinated with 2 of the parents whose phone numbers she'd collected over the previous months and arranged for a storytelling corner where Emma's favorite books were displayed, because Emma had mentioned once casually that she wanted her friends to know she liked books now and not be weird about it. Daniel found out about all of this 3 days before the party, when Emma, in a burst of excitement she could not contain, told him everything Sophia had done. He stood in the kitchen and listened to his daughter detail what was essentially a fully operational event plan. Then he called Sophia. When did you, he started. February 12th, she said. She called me from your phone. She called you. She said you were going to get the grocery store cake. He looked at the ceiling. I was going to get the grocery store cake, he said. I know, Sophia said. She knows you well. A pause. You should have told me, he said. I could have. You would have told me it was too much, she said. You would have said you had it handled. You would have been grateful and uncomfortable and tried to take over. He opened his mouth. Am I wrong? She said. A pause. No, he said. She asked me, Sophia said more gently, not to go around you, because she trusts you, but because she wanted something specific, and she knew I'd understand the specific. That's different. He exhaled. Thank you, he said. You're welcome, she said. The cake has edible stars. Of course it does, he said. And the warmth in his voice was the kind that comes from being known by more than one person at once, from having a life that is held from multiple directions, which is something he had forgotten was possible. The party was on Saturday, March 15th. It was loud and purple and completely perfect. Emma stood in the middle of it all with frosting on her cheek, before the cake was even officially cut, surrounded by her friends, holding a book she had been given as a gift, with the expression of someone who has received exactly what they wanted. She looked at Sophia across the room and gave a thumbs up of absolute satisfaction. Sophia gave one back. Daniel, standing beside Sophia with a cup of coffee, watched his daughter. He said quietly, so nobody else heard, "She looks happy." "She is happy," Sophia said. "This time last year," he said, and then stopped. She waited. "This time last year the birthday was fine," he said. "The grocery store cake was fine." Emma smiled and said thank you and went to bed on time. "And I thought that's enough. That's what we have now. Fine." He looked at his daughter. "This isn't fine," he said. "This is something else." Sophia didn't say anything. She didn't need to. He looked at her. "Thank you," he said again. But different this time. Not polite gratitude. The kind that comes from somewhere lower, somewhere that doesn't get said out loud very often. She nodded. Emma appeared between them, grabbed Sophia's hand and said, "Come see what Lily gave me," and pulled her away, and Daniel stood alone with his coffee and the party noise around him, and felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in 5 years. He felt at home, not in the house, in the moment, in the shape of his own life. That feeling lasted exactly 11 days before it was tested in a way he did not see coming. The call came on a Tuesday evening, March 26th, at 6:15 p.m. Daniel was at Sophia's apartment. They had started doing this, taking turns, his house, her apartment, back and forth in the easy rotation of people who have accepted that they are in each other's lives now. Emma was at Daniel's, Mrs. Kowalski's house, for 2 hours, a standing arrangement that had evolved organically as these things do. He was reading. She was reading. They were doing nothing, which was everything. His phone rang. He looked at the screen and his whole body changed. She saw it. The stillness that was not peaceful. The kind of still that happens when someone's body understands something before their mind does. "Who is it?" she said. "My father," he said. He answered. She watched his face during the call. She had learned to read him well enough by March to know that the conversation was not good within the first 30 seconds. She knew it was complicated within the first minute. By the time he hung up, 4 minutes later, she knew something significant had shifted. He set the phone down on his knee. He sat with it for a moment. "He's sick," Daniel said. "My dad. They found something in February, but he didn't tell me. He told me now because it's more serious than he wanted to think." She was very still. "How serious?" she said. "He needs surgery," Daniel said. "And after the surgery, he can't live alone for a while. He's in Ohio." A pause. "He doesn't have anyone else. My brother's in Germany, military. Can't get back." She absorbed this. "How long would you need to be there?" she said carefully. He looked at her. The look of a man doing calculations he doesn't want to do. "I don't know," he said. "Weeks maybe. Maybe longer." He rubbed his hand over his face. "I'd have to close the shop. I'd have to take Emma out of school. Or—" He stopped. "Or leave Sophia here." The word he didn't say landed between them anyway. "You should go," she said. "Sophia." "He's your father," she said. "He needs you. You go." He looked at her. "It's not that simple," he said. "Yes, it is," she said. "Some things are simple. Your father needing you is simple." "I'm not talking about whether I go," he said. "I'm going. I'm talking about what this means for—" He gestured between them, an incomplete gesture, the kind that holds everything it can't name. "It means we figure it out," she said. "Sophia." "Daniel, what do you want me to say? That I'm going to fall apart while you're gone? That this is too hard to manage?" She shook her head. "I've been managing things alone for 27 years. A few weeks isn't going to undo this." He studied her. "You sure?" he said. No, she said honestly. But I'm sure that you need to go. Start there. He exhaled. Then he looked at her with an expression she had not seen from him before, stripped back, unguarded, the expression of a man who has held himself together for so long that he sometimes forgets other people can be load-bearing. I hate this, he said. I know, she said. The timing is. There's no good timing, she said. There's just what happens. He nodded, then quieter. Emma's going to want to know if you'll be here when we get back. She met his eyes. Tell her yes, she said. He held her gaze for a long moment. Okay, he said. He left for Ohio on the 1st of April with Emma in the passenger seat, and the truck loaded with more supplies than he needed, because packing too much was how Daniel Hayes handled, not knowing how long something would take. The first week was logistics. Surgery recovery ward, the mechanical process of a hospital that had no patience for emotion. Daniel called Sophia every night at 9, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 10 minutes, always the same opening. Dad's okay. How are you? She appreciated the order of that. He asked about his father first, then her. That was right. The second week, the hospital gave way to his father's house, and the logistics gave way to something harder. Two men who had spent decades communicating primarily through practical tasks, now in a small house together. One of them weakened. Both of them. Stubborn, neither of them practiced at saying the things they actually meant. He keeps thanking me, Daniel told Sophia on the phone on a Wednesday night. Every 10 minutes, it's driving me insane. He feels guilty, she said. He should have called me in February, he said. He should have, she agreed. But he didn't because he didn't want to be a burden. And now he's there, and he's weak, and he can't fix anything, and all he has is thank you. Silence. I hate that, Daniel said. I know, she said. Tell him you're not keeping score. He won't believe me. Tell him anyway, she said. People need to hear things they don't believe the first time. A beat. You're good at this, he said. People kept not saying things to me, she said. So I learned what it costs. He was quiet. How's the bookstore? He asked. Good, she said. Busy. Your neighbor Mrs. Kowalski came in today. She bought 3 mysteries and asked me if you were coming back soon. What did you tell her? I told her yes. Good, he said. That's the right answer. Emma took the phone once a week and gave Sophia detailed reports on Ohio, which she had decided was fine, but not as good as Willow Creek, primarily because there was no bookstore within walking distance. She asked Sophia once seriously if she thought book deserts were a real problem in America. Sophia told her yes they were, and she should write about it someday. Emma said she planned to. They hung up. Daniel came back on the line. She's going to write a book about book deserts, he said. She told my dad at dinner. What did he say? He said he'd buy the first copy. Sophia smiled into the phone. It was on a Thursday night in the 3rd week that the call went differently. She called him this time. 9 p.m., the usual window. He picked up, but something was off immediately, the particular hollow quality in a person's voice when they have been through something that day they haven't processed yet. What happened? She said. A pause. Nothing major, he said. Dad and I had it out a little. About what? He hesitated. About you, he said. She went still. My dad asked about you, Daniel said. He'd heard Emma talks about you constantly, so he had a picture, and he asked how serious it was. What did you tell him? I told him it was serious, Daniel said. And then he said, another pause, longer. He said he was glad, and then he said something else. She waited. He said he was glad I had found someone again, but he wanted to make sure he said it like he was being careful. He wanted to make sure I knew what I was choosing. The quiet between them stretched. He has concerns, she said. Her voice was flat, not angry, just flat. Not about you, Daniel said quickly. Not like that. He said, Sophia, he said he was worried I would hurt you. Not that you weren't good enough. That I might not be ready. That I might still be in a place where I couldn't be what someone deserved. She had not expected that. He said that I have a pattern, Daniel said, and his voice had something rough in it now, something that was working through resistance. Of taking care of everyone, and not letting anyone take care of me. And that the woman who gets close to me is going to want to do that to take care of me back, and I might not let her. And that's not fair to her. Sophia didn't say anything, because she knew exactly what she was about to say, and she needed a second to decide if this was the right moment. She decided it was. "Your dad is perceptive," she said. "A beat." "He is," Daniel said. "Has that been true?" she said. "In your experience, not letting people in?" "Yes," he said, without deflection, just yes. "Has it been true with me?" she said. A longer pause. "Less than before," he said. "Less than before," she repeated. "You don't accept it," he said. "You called me out in January. You pushed. I'm not—" He stopped. "It's harder to close off when someone keeps knocking." "I'm going to keep knocking," she said. "I know," he said. And something in his voice was not resistance. Something in his voice was relief. "Tell your dad thank you," she said. "He'll be smug about it," Daniel said. "That's fine," she said. "He earned it." A small sound from Daniel that was a laugh. She held the phone and felt the 3 weeks of distance like a physical weight and said, "Come home soon." "Working on it," he said. "Dad's stronger than he's letting on. Another 10 days, maybe 12. "Okay," she said. "I'll be here." "I know," he said. But the universe, which has no interest in tidy timelines, had other plans. It was April 19th, a Sunday, 6 days before Daniel was scheduled to come home, when the second twist arrived, and this one didn't come with a phone call or a warning or any of the courtesies that difficult things should by rights provide. It came through Renee. Sophia's best friend called at 11 in the morning, and the way she opened, "Hey, I need to tell you something before you hear it somewhere else," told Sophia everything she needed to know about the quality of what was coming. "Say it," Sophia said. "There's a post," Renee said. "On the Willow Creek community Facebook page. Karen Alvarez put it up this morning." Karen Alvarez was 46, ran the town's garden club, and had been a background presence in Sophia's awareness for years. Not hostile exactly, but the kind of woman who treated other people's lives as content. She had opinions about everything. She posted them publicly. "What does it say?" Sophia said. Renee read it. It was not overtly cruel. That was the thing about Karen Alvarez. She never said anything overtly cruel. The post expressed in carefully constructed community concern language. A worry about a local child whose father had brought a new woman into her life very quickly after the death of the child's mother, and whether it was appropriate for someone with no children and no direct experience of grief to take on such a significant role in a vulnerable family, and whether the community had a responsibility to ask these questions on behalf of a little girl who couldn't ask them herself. She never used names. But in Willow Creek, she didn't need to. There were 47 comments by the time Renee called. Most of them Sophia didn't read. She read 3, which was 3 too many. She put the phone down. She sat in her apartment and felt something happen to her that was the exact thing she had feared since October. Not the post itself. Not Karen Alvarez. But what it meant to be inside something that the world could reach into and touch. She had been here before. Not this specific situation, but this feeling. The feeling of being publicly evaluated and found by someone with a platform and a judgmental streak to be the problem. The interloper. The woman who didn't belong. She had survived it before. She knew she would survive it now. But for about 45 minutes on a Sunday morning in April, she sat with it fully, let herself feel the weight of it, without composing her face, without managing it, without telling herself she was fine, and she cried. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way she cried when she was alone, and the armor was off, letting the real version of herself have the reaction that the public version was never allowed to have. Then she washed her face, and she called Daniel. He picked up on the first ring. She could tell from the sound of his voice that he had already seen it. Someone had gotten there first. Some Willow Creek informational pipeline that she had underestimated. "Sophia," he said. "I know you saw it," she said. "I saw it 20 minutes ago," he said. "I've been trying to decide whether to call." You should always call, she said. I know, he said. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for Karen Alvarez, she said. I'm not, he said. I'm apologizing for the fact that you had to sit with this while I'm not there, she breathed. I'm okay, she said. Sophia. I cried already, she said. I'm done. I'm okay. A pause. You cried, he said, like the fact of it was important to him. Yes, she said. I'm allowed. You are, he said. I'm glad you did. Then, I'm going to say something on the page. You don't have to do that, she said immediately. I know I don't have to, he said. It'll just give her more. Sophia. His voice was quiet but absolute. She wrote about Emma. She wrote about my family. She can write about whatever she wants in general, but she brought Emma into it. I'm going to respond. She was quiet. Unless you ask me not to, he said. I'll defer to you. But that's the only reason I won't. She thought about it. She thought about what it meant to let him handle something. To not tell him it was fine, she could manage, she didn't need. She thought about his father's words. The pattern. The not letting people in. She thought about the deal they made in January. Okay, she said. Okay, I can respond, he said. Okay, you can respond, she said. She heard him exhale. What Daniel Hayes wrote on the Willow Creek community Facebook page at 11:47 a.m. on a Sunday in April was 39 words long. She read it 3 times. He wrote, My daughter and I are well and happy. The person you're referring to without naming has been nothing but good for our family. Please leave my child out of community discussions. She doesn't belong there. 39 words. No anger. No capitalization. No lengthy defense. Just fact boundary and an absolute lack of apology. The comments shifted within the hour. Not everyone's Karen Alvarez responded with a paragraph about how she was just asking questions. But the general temperature changed. The people who had been quiet showed up. Patty commented 3 words, Well said, Danny. Mrs. Kowalski wrote something longer about what she had personally observed about the care and kindness shown to Emma over the past months. 3 other people from town wrote variations of agreement. Karen Alvarez deleted her original post by 2 in the afternoon. Daniel texted Sophia at 2:03. She deleted it. Sophia responded, I saw. He wrote, You okay? She thought about it. She wrote, I'm better than okay. I'm proud of you. His response came in 2 minutes. For what I just told the truth. She smiled at the phone. She wrote, That's what I'm proud of. He came home on April 24th. She didn't go to the house when he arrived. She gave him the afternoon with Emma. The resettling, the unpacking, the dinner making, all the ordinary logistics of return. She knew he needed that. She knew Emma needed that. He texted at 8. She's asleep. Can you come over? She was at his door at 8:20. He opened it before she knocked. He had heard her car. They stood at the doorway for a moment. 3.5 weeks of phone calls and texts and managed distance, and now no distance at all, just the actual physical fact of each other. She said hi. He said hi. And then he put his arms around her, and she let him. And they stood in the doorway of his house in Willow Creek for a long time, not talking, not explaining anything, just the simple wordless relief of being in the same space again. She felt him exhale against her shoulder. Really exhale. The full exhale of a man who has been held together by necessity and can finally stop for a moment. She held on. She thought this is what his dad meant. This is what he hasn't let people do. She didn't say it. She just stayed there until he was ready to move. They went inside. High-modded tea, which was something he had started doing in Ohio because his father drank tea and old habits absorbed from family in difficult times are stubborn. She sat at his kitchen table and watched him move around the familiar space, and she thought he fits here. He fits in this kitchen. He fits in this life. She thought I might fit here too. He brought the tea and sat across from her. He said, I thought about you every day. I know, she said. You called. More than that, he said. I thought about what you said, about knocking, about not stopping. She waited. I talked to my dad, he said. Not about you specifically, about Claire, about the years after. I told him things I hadn't told anyone. He looked at the teacup. He cried again. He's crying a lot this month. I think the surgery scared him. Near-death experiences tend to rearrange people's priorities, she said. Yeah, he said. He told me he wished he'd said more things to my mother before she died. Not dramatic things, just things that he thought she knew but had never actually said. She looked at him. He said, "Don't do that," Daniel said. "Don't assume the person knows. Say the thing." A beat. "And," she said. He looked up from the tea. "And I'm working on it," he said. "Okay," she said. I don't do this fast," he said. "I know," she said. "I'm not asking for fast. I'm asking you to give me time," he said. "Not distance, time." "Those are different things," she said. "Yeah," he said. "Time means I'm still here. I'm just moving careful." "I know how you move," she said. He looked at her. "I've been watching since October," she said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "My dad asked if I was going to marry you." She did not move. "He asked that," she said. Her voice was very careful. "He did," Daniel said. He said Emma talks about you like you're permanent. And he said a child that age either knows something or invents something, and Emma is not an inventor." She looked at the table. "What did you say?" she said. "I said I didn't know yet," he said. And he said that was the most honest answer I'd given anyone in 5 years. She felt her eyes sting. She blinked it back. She said, "Daniel." "Yeah, I need you to understand something," she said. "I'm not here because I'm waiting for an outcome. I'm not here collecting patience points until you arrive at something. I'm here because right now today, this is where I want to be. And if that changes for either of us, we talk about it. But I'm not holding my breath for a destination." He looked at her. "But if you asked me," she said quieter, "right now what I want, what I actually want, not what I'm careful about wanting." She stopped. "What?" he said. She met his eyes. "I want this to be permanent," she said. "I want Emma calling me by name like I'm already part of the sentence. I want to be the person you call at 2 a.m. I want the Saturday mornings and the hard conversations and the tea in the kitchen." A beat. "I want the real version, not the provisional one." He sat with that. She watched him sit with it. Not panic, not retreat, but the careful, deliberate absorption of a man who is receiving something he has been moving toward and is now standing in front of it. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said. "I hear you," he said. "I want that too." He paused. "I'm just scared," she said. "Yeah. Me too," she said. "Every single day. That doesn't go away." "Does it get smaller?" he said. "Yes," she said. "The more you choose the thing, the smaller the fear gets." He nodded. They sat in his kitchen with the tea and the quiet house and the sleeping child upstairs, and the fear was there, and the want was there, and both of them knew that what happened next would not be decided tonight, but was already irrevocably in motion. Sophia went home at 11. She stood at the door, and he put his hand against her face briefly, the way he touched things. He was careful about the way he handled things he didn't want to break. "Thank you," he said, "for not disappearing while I was gone." "I told you I wouldn't," she said. "I know," he said. "I believed you." She smiled. "Good night, Daniel," she said. "Good night," he said. She drove home. She sat in her parking spot and thought about everything that had been said and not said, and the way his hand had felt against her face, like something deliberate and decided. She thought something is coming. Something neither of us has said yet. It's close enough now that I can feel it in the air between us, like weather before it breaks. She thought, whatever it is, I'm ready. She was right that it was coming. She just didn't know it would arrive on a rainy night in May on his back porch with a question that would leave one of them speechless. And that the question, the one that changes everything, would not come from her. May arrived the way it always does after a long winter, sudden and generous, the kind of warmth that makes you forget you were ever cold. The town breathed differently in May. People came outside. Conversations happened on sidewalks. The bookstore on Main Street propped its door open for the first time since October, and Sophia stood in that open doorway one morning in the first week of the month and thought, I have never been this happy and this terrified at the same time in my entire life. That was the truth of it. Not one or the other. Both simultaneously running parallel like two currents in the same river. She and Daniel had found a rhythm since his return from Ohio. A real one. Not the careful what are we rhythm of the fall, and not the tested surviving distance rhythm of April. Something settled. Something that had stopped asking itself permission to exist. He came by the bookstore on Tuesday and Thursday lunches. She was at his house 3 or 4 evenings a week. Emma had stopped treating her arrival as an event, and started treating it as a fact, which was the highest possible signal that a 7-year-old could send. You're here, Emma said one Tuesday evening without looking up from her homework when Sophia walked in. I'm here, Sophia said. Dad burned the rice again, Emma reported. I didn't burn it, Daniel called from the kitchen. It's toasted. It's burned, Emma said, still not looking up. Sophia, is it burned if it's black on the bottom? That depends, Sophia said, dropping her bag on the chair and walking toward the kitchen. How much of it is black? The whole bottom layer, Emma said. Then yes, Sophia said. It's burned. Daniel, standing at the stove with a spatula, pointed at her. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of accurate information, she said, and took the spatula from his hand. Go help Emma. I'll fix it. He looked at her. That look he had. The one that was not gratitude, exactly, more like recognition. Like seeing something that fits. You don't have to. Daniel, she said. Go. He went. And Sophia stood in his kitchen on a Tuesday evening in May, making dinner for a family that was not technically hers. Yet feeling more at home than she had ever felt in any space that was officially hers, and she thought, this is the thing I was afraid to want. And I am standing in the middle of it. It was Emma who detonated the first charge. That was not surprising. Emma had a gift for saying the thing nobody else in the room was saying, with the complete unbothered confidence of someone who did not yet understand why certain things were supposed to be complicated. It happened at dinner on a Wednesday, the 14th of May. They were eating real rice this time, properly cooked, and Emma was telling them about a project at school involving state capitals, which she found boring, but was attempting to memorize through a song she had invented, which she demonstrated at the table with complete commitment. Then between Sacramento and Juneau, she looked up and said, Are you going to live with us? The table went very quiet. Sophia looked at her plate. Daniel set down his fork. Emma looked between them with the practical patience of someone who has asked a reasonable question and is waiting for a reasonable answer. I mean, Emma said, you're here a lot, and your stuff is here. Your book is on the shelf. She pointed. There was indeed a Sophia book on the living room shelf. She had lent it to Daniel weeks ago, and it had simply stayed. And Dad smiles more when you're here, so I thought, Emma, Daniel said. His voice was gentle. I'm just asking, Emma said. Ms. Henderson at school says it's good to ask questions instead of wondering. Ms. Henderson is right, Sophia said carefully. And that's a very good question. So, Emma said. Sophia looked at Daniel. Daniel looked back at her. There was an entire conversation in that look. Every text at 2 a.m., every hard conversation, every moment. They had chosen to stay when leaving would have been easier, every fear they had named and walked toward anyway. All of it in 3 seconds of eye contact. That's something your dad and I are figuring out, Sophia said. Emma seemed to accept this. Okay, she said. I just wanted to say I think it would be good. She picked up her fork. Sacramento, she continued, returning to her memorization song without pause. Salem, St. Paul. Daniel and Sophia sat across from each other with the question hovering in the air between them like smoke, and neither of them said anything else about it, and both of them thought about nothing else for the rest of the evening. After Emma was in bed, Sophia was putting on her jacket to leave when Daniel said, She's not wrong, you know. She turned. He was leaning in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall. Arms crossed. That stillness. About what specifically? She said. About me smiling more, he said. She looked at him. I didn't notice that, he said, until she said it out loud. But it's true. He paused. I smile more, I laugh more, I sleep more. I burned the rice because I was on the phone with you and I wasn't paying attention, which is, I haven't been distracted by a phone call in years. You burned the rice for me, she said. That's romantic. The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. The precursor to one. I'm serious, he said. I know, she said. I'm not good at... He stopped. Tried again. My dad told me to say the thing. I'm trying to say the thing. She put her jacket on the back of the chair and sat down. She gave him the room. He said, You are the first person since Claire who has made me feel like the future is somewhere I want to go. Not just somewhere I'm managing toward, somewhere I actually want to be. She held very still. And that scares me, he said. You know it scares me. But I'm done letting the fear have more space than the truth. Daniel. I'm not done, he said. She closed her mouth. Emma asked if you're going to live with us, he said. I don't have an answer to that tonight. I don't move fast, you know that. But I want you to know that the question doesn't scare me. The question feels right. And a year ago, I would not have been able to say that about anything. She looked at her hands. She looked back at him. You're killing me, she said quietly. Why? Because you keep saying exactly the right thing, she said. And I don't know what to do with that. You could say something back, he said. She breathed. I don't have a plan B, she said. That's what I want you to know. I know I said I'm not waiting for a destination, and I meant that I'm not, but I also don't have a version of this in my head where I walk away. I'm not holding an exit in reserve. I'm completely in this, which is the most terrifying thing I've said to anyone in my adult life. He looked at her. Good, he said. Good. I don't want your exit, he said. I don't want you managing your risk. I want you in it. She felt something release in her chest. The specific release of a thing that has been held carefully for a very long time, being allowed to set down its weight. Okay, she said. Okay, he said. She picked up her jacket. She stopped. Daniel, she said. Yeah. I'm going to start leaving more books on your shelf, she said. He looked at her for a moment. Okay, he said. She left. She drove home and sat in her car for 5 minutes and then called Renee. Renee picked up and said, Tell me everything. He said the future is somewhere he wants to go, Sophia said, because of me. Renee was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then she said, Oh, that man is done. I know, Sophia said. You're both done, Renee said. You've been done since October. I've been watching you both be done for 7 months. I know, Sophia said again. Are you happy? Renee said. Simply, the way only old friends ask. Sophia sat in the dark car in the parking lot of her apartment building. Yes, she said. Not performed, not hedged, just yes. The rain came on the evening of May 21st. It came in hard and fast, the way spring rain does, without much warning, drumming on rooftops and turning the streets reflective, and making the whole world feel contained and interior. Sophia was at Daniel's house because she was at Daniel's house most evenings by now, and Emma had gone to bed early with a book she refused to put down until Daniel gently removed it from her hands, and she was asleep before the page fell. They were on the back porch. The roof covered it, so the rain fell in front of them without touching them. They could feel the damp in the air and hear the full percussion of it without being in it. Daniel had his coffee. Sophia had her tea. They had been talking about nothing specific for 20 minutes, a comfortable wandering conversation that moved from Emma's school project to Daniel's upcoming job at a farm outside of town, to a book Sophia was reading that she couldn't decide if she loved or hated. And then the conversation ran out the way. Conversations do when two people are comfortable enough that silence is not a problem. They sat with the rain. And then Daniel set his coffee cup down on the arm of his chair. He did it carefully, deliberately, with the specific care of someone who is deciding something. He turned to look at her. She felt it. The shift. the particular quality of someone's attention when it has reorganized itself towards something important. She turned to look at him. He said, "Why choose me?" She heard the question and felt it land in the exact center of her chest. "What?" she said. "Why choose me?" Not louder, just clearer, like he was making sure each word was distinct. "You're 27 years old. You're one of the most. You're smarter than anyone I've met in years. You're kind in a way that doesn't perform itself, which is rarer than people know. You could be anywhere. You could choose." He stopped. "You could choose easier." She recognized the words. She recognized them because she had heard the shape of them before from the inside. Every night for years when the armor was off and the voice in her head ran its usual inventory. Why would anyone choose me? How was asking it about himself? She understood in that moment what it had cost him to say it out loud. Daniel Hayes, who held things in sealed chambers, who managed everything alone, who had spent 5 years being the load-bearing wall of his own life. He was sitting on a porch in the rain and asking her the most vulnerable question a person can ask. She didn't rush it. She let the rain fill the space for a moment. Then she said, "Can I ask you something first?" He nodded. "When Emma was sick in November," she said, "the fever that wouldn't break, you sat next to her bed for 2 nights. You didn't sleep." "Yeah," he said. "You texted me at 2 in the morning," she said. "You didn't call anyone else. You didn't post about it anywhere. You sat there with her and you reached for one other person." He was quiet. "That was the night I knew," she said. "Knew what?" "That you were the kind of man I had been looking for without knowing I was looking," she said. "Not because you were suffering, because of what you did with the suffering. You didn't collapse. You didn't perform. You just sat there and loved your kid and reached out to one person and asked for the simplest possible thing: company. Presence. Someone to talk to so the room wasn't quiet." He wasn't moving. "That's not weakness," she said. "That's the bravest thing I've ever seen a person do. Because the ones who never ask, who manage everything alone and never reach, they're not strong. They're just lonely. And you were almost that. You were so close to just being a man who managed things and was lonely about it." He looked at the rain. "But you texted me," she said. He was quiet for a long time. "I almost didn't," he said. "I know," she said. "That's why it mattered." Another silence. "You want to know why I choose you," she said. "Because everything you listed just now, older single father, rough hands, complicated life, those are not subtractions, Daniel. Those are the whole point. You are a man who built something real from the hardest possible material. You lost the person you loved, and you got up every morning and made animal pancakes and fixed your neighbor's fence and showed up at that cafe on a Thursday, just wanting coffee. And when you saw someone being treated like they didn't matter, you didn't calculate whether it was your business. You just stood up." His jaw was tight. "You stood up," she said again, "in a room full of people who decided it wasn't their problem. And you have no idea, you genuinely have no idea what that meant to someone who had spent 27 years watching people decide it wasn't their problem." She stopped. She felt the weight of what she was about to say. She said it anyway. "You are the first person who made me feel like I was the right amount," she said. "Not too much, not enough, the right amount. And that doesn't happen. That doesn't just happen. I don't care how old you are or how many complications come with you. I would choose complicated with you over simple with anyone else, every time, without hesitation." The rain came down. He didn't say anything for a long moment. She waited. Then she heard it, the smallest sound, not quite a breath, not quite a word. The sound a person's when something they've been holding finally finds the place it was meant to land. He reached over and took her hand. He held it the way he held things he was careful about, the way he touched things he didn't want to break. Then he said very quietly, "I don't know what I did to deserve you." "You stood up," she said. "In a cafe, on a Thursday." He made the sound that was almost a laugh, but had something else underneath it, something that had been a long time coming. "That's it," he said. "That's it," she said. They sat with the rain and the held hands, and the weight of 7 months of choosing each other carefully, imperfectly, consistently. And Sophia thought, this is the moment. The real one. Not a dramatic moment. No music, no perfect lighting, just a porch and rain, and a man who finally asked the question out loud that had been living in him for months. And she had answered it. And he had not retreated. That was the whole story, really. Everything else was context. At the center of it was this people who had learned to expect less than they deserved, sitting next to each other, choosing not to expect less anymore. It was Daniel who spoke next. His voice was different now. Something in it had been reorganized. "I want to ask you something," he said. She turned to look at him. I was looking at her with the direct, unhurried attention that was so distinctly him, the look that took its time because it was serious, because it meant what it was doing. "Not tonight," he said. I don't do things fast. You know that." "I know that," she said. "But I want you to know that I'm going to ask you something," he said. "In the future, when the time is right, I'm not going to make you wonder. I'm not going to let it sit in the air without a shape." He paused. "I want you to know it's coming." She felt her heart do something complicated and complete. "Daniel," she said. "Yeah. Are you telling me you're going to propose to me sometime in the future?" "I'm telling you I want to," he said. "And I've never told anyone what I want in a long time, so I'm telling you." She pressed her lips together. She felt the tears, but she didn't let them fall because she was Sophia Miller, and she had spent years keeping herself upright, and some things were just reflexive. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to say yes, when you ask. I'm telling you now, so you're not scared about it." He looked at her. Something broke open in his face. Not in a bad way. In the way that things break open when they have been sealed too long and the light gets in. "You're telling me in advance," he said. "I'm doing for you what you did for me in January," she said. Hard conversation instead of silence. No wondering. He was quiet. Then, "You're better at this than I am." "You're catching up," she said. The rain kept falling. His hand kept holding hers. And neither of them moved for a long time, because sometimes the moments you have been building toward for months arrive, and the right thing to do is simply stay in them. What happened after that was not dramatic. Real life rarely is. June came, and Emma finished second grade with 3 reading certificates and a report card that her teacher had annotated with a note, saying Emma had shown remarkable growth in literacy engagement, and clearly had someone in her life who was nurturing her love of books, which made Daniel show Sophia the report card immediately, and made Sophia have to look at the ceiling for a moment. Marcus called from Denver in June and asked how things were. Daniel told him. Marcus said, "I like her. I told you I liked her." Daniel did not point out that Marcus had also arrived with concerns in February, because some things were better left in the month they happened. Daniel's father called from Ohio every Sunday, which was new. They had never had a Sunday call routine before. They talked about practical things, and also sometimes about unpractical things. About Claire, about what it meant to build a second life, without erasing the first, about the particular courage of a person who chooses to love again after loss. His father asked about Sophia every call. He had never met her, but he knew her from the way Daniel talked, and he told Daniel one Sunday, "She sounds like someone who tells the truth even when it's easier not to." Daniel said that was accurate. His father said, "Those are the rare ones. You hold on to the rare ones." Daniel held on. Sophia held on too. She stopped thinking of his house as his house, and started thinking of it the way you think of a place that has begun to organize itself around your presence. The shelf with her books, the mug she preferred in the cupboard, the specific spot on the couch that had become hers through the logic of repeated occupation. She stopped bringing her whole bag every time she came over and started leaving things quietly, incrementally, the way she had told him she would. More books on the shelf. A cardigan on the hook by the door. A reading lamp she had brought over because the light in the living room was wrong for nighttime reading, and Daniel had looked at it when she installed it and said nothing, but also made no move to suggest she take it back. These were the negotiations of a life being merged. Not announced. Not official. Just accumulated the way real things accumulate slowly, then obviously, then permanently. Emma noticed every single item. She mentioned none of them directly. She simply began including them in the furniture of her life. Sophia's lamp is on, she told Daniel one evening, meaning the living room was ready for reading. Sophia's book is in the way, she told Daniel another time, meaning she needed the coffee table cleared. She said it with the casual ownership of someone who had already finished the process of deciding. She had decided in October, probably. She was 8. She was faster than the adults. The question came on the Saturday in July. Not the question. Daniel had warned Sophia was coming, that one would come later in its own time. In the careful way, Daniel did everything. This was a different question from a different direction entirely. And it arrived with zero warning at 10 in the morning, while Sophia was helping Emma organize her bookshelf by the new system Emma had devised, which involved color, and also something she called emotional weight, that she could not fully explain, but was very certain about. Emma was on the floor with a stack of books sorted by feeling. Sophia was handing them up, and Emma said without preamble, without looking up with the same tone she used to tell Daniel the rice was burned, "Do you love my dad?" Sophia's hands stopped on the book she was holding. Emma looked up. She was waiting. Not impatiently, just waiting. The way she waited for information she had decided she needed. Sophia looked at this 8-year-old girl. This serious, opinionated book-sorting person who had called her from her father's phone in November and asked her to come to the Christmas market and made her a lopsided wreath and said your lamp and your book and you're here as naturally as breathing. She thought about lying. Not seriously. Just the reflex thought. She thought about saying something age-appropriate and deflecting. She thought about what Daniel had said. Say the thing. Don't assume the person knows. She looked at Emma. Yes, she said. Emma looked at her for a moment. Does he know? Emma said. Yes, Sophia said. Does he love you back? Emma said. I think so, Sophia said. Emma considered this. He does, Emma said with complete confidence. I can tell. He cleans the house before you come over. He only does that when something matters. Sophia felt the laugh coming, but held it. Does that bother you? Sophia said. The two of us. Emma looked at her with an expression of genuine puzzlement. Why would it bother me? She said. Some kids find it complicated, Sophia said carefully. When a parent, my mom's not here, Emma said, plainly, not bitterly, with the clear-eyed acceptance of someone who has processed a hard truth over time. She's not here, and she's not coming back, and I know that. Dad told me the truth about that when I was little because I asked, and he doesn't lie to me. She looked at her books. But she's still my mom. Nothing changes that. No, Sophia said quietly. Nothing changes that. So it's not complicated, Emma said. You're you, she's her. Dad loves both. I can too. She handed Sophia a book to hold. Emotional weight heavy, but good. That shelf. Sophia put the book on the heavy but good shelf. She looked at this child who had in 30 seconds articulated something that the adults in her life had spent months circling around. She thought she's going to be extraordinary. She already is. Emma, she said. Yeah. Thank you. Emma looked up. For what? For asking, Sophia said. For saying what you think. For not making it complicated when you didn't have to. Emma thought about this. Ms. Henderson says clarity is a gift, she said. Ms. Henderson is right, Sophia said. Emma went back to her sorting. Sophia handed her books, and the morning continued easy and ordinary and completely full. The way mornings are when you are in the right place. Daniel found out about the conversation 3 days later, when Emma told him at dinner with the same casual completeness she brought to all information transfer. I asked Sophia if she loves you, Emma said, spooning her soup. Daniel's spoon stopped. You did, he said. She said yes, Emma said. He was very still. And I told her you clean the house before she comes over, Emma continued. So she knows you love her back. He said nothing. Emma looked up. That was okay to say, right, she said, not anxious, just checking. He looked at his daughter, this 8-year-old person who had his mother's directness and her grandmother's clarity, and something entirely her own that he had watched emerge over 8 years of paying attention to every small thing she did and said. "Yeah, Em," he said. That was okay to say. She nodded. She returned to her soup. He picked up his spoon. He looked at the table and felt the thing that had been building since October, since a Thursday evening in a café, when he broke his own rule and stood up arrive at its completion. Not finished. Not closed. Completed the way something completes when it has become what it was becoming. He texted Sophia after dinner. She responded in 40 seconds because she almost always responded in 40 seconds, and he had stopped pretending not to notice that she did. He wrote, "Emma told me about your conversation." She wrote, "I know. She told me she was going to." He wrote, "You said yes." She wrote, "I did." He wrote, "You meant it." She wrote, "Daniel, you know I meant it." He sat with his phone. He wrote, "I'm going to do something in the next few weeks. I need a little more time to do it right." She wrote, "I know. I already told you yes." He wrote, "I know you did. I want to do it anyway. I want to ask." She wrote, "Then ask." He wrote, "Not by text." She wrote, "I know. I'm not going anywhere." He wrote, "I know you're not." A pause. He wrote, "I cleaned the house before you came over. Every time." She wrote, "I know." He wrote, "How long have you known?" She wrote, "Since November. Mrs. Kowalski mentioned it. She said you vacuumed on a Tuesday. You never vacuum on a Tuesday." He sat back. He thought about the 7 months. Every careful move. Every sealed-off thing that had slowly found its way open. Every moment he had thought he was being subtle, and apparently, absolutely nobody had been fooled except him. He wrote, "I'm not subtle, am I?" She wrote, "Not even a little. But you're honest. That's better." He put the phone down. He sat in the kitchen of his house that had, without his fully noticing when it happened, become a home again. Not the careful, managed, holding-it-together structure of the past 5 years. A home. With a lamp in the living room that belonged to someone else, and books on the shelf that were not his, and a mug in the cupboard that he always put back in the same spot, because she had a spot now, and a daughter who sorted books by emotional weight and asked the questions the adults were dancing around and said, "It's not complicated," with the clean, clear logic of someone who had decided what mattered and gotten on with it. He thought about Claire. He thought about her the way he had learned to think about her since Ohio, not the grief-shaped thought that had been his default for 5 years, but the real thought. The one that remembered her as she actually was. Funny. Direct. Someone who rewrapped his gifts without telling him because she loved him, and also found him slightly incompetent about bows. He thought she would have liked Sophia. I thought she would have liked that Sophia tells the truth, even when it's easier not to. He thought she would have said something dry and precise about the fact that it took me this long to stop being alone. He thought, "I know Claire. I know, I'm working on it." He got up. He checked on Emma. She was asleep with a book open on her chest, which was exactly where she had been going to sleep for the past 3 months. He closed the book carefully, put it on her nightstand, turned off the light. He stood in her doorway for a moment. He thought, she's going to be okay. She was always going to be okay. She had her mother's resilience, and she knows who she is. She just needed the world to grow a little more around her. He went back downstairs. He sat on the back porch for a while with the May air, which was warm now, nothing like the cold of the earlier months. He sat and let himself think about what was coming. Not with the old fear, not with the careful management of a man who has talked himself out of wanting things. With something else. Anticipation. Simple, clean anticipation. The question he was going to ask was not going to be a surprise. She had told him the answer in advance, which was the most Sophia thing she had ever done, clearing the fear out of his path before he got there. The same way she had called him in January and said, "Stop going quiet." The same way she had stepped back and let Marcus say his piece, and then met Marcus on his own terms and turned it. She had been doing that the whole time. Clearing the path before he got there. Not by making it easy. It had not been easy, but by making it possible. He thought about the porch in the rain. He thought about her saying, "I would choose complicated with you over simple with anyone else." Every time. without hesitation. He thought about a Thursday evening in October when all he wanted was coffee. He thought the whole rest of my life started in that cafe on a Thursday. I thought I didn't see it coming. He thought I'm glad I was paying enough attention to see it when it arrived. He went inside. He closed the back door. He went to bed. And for the second time in his life, he lay down next to the thought of a woman who had chosen him completely, without reservation, with full knowledge of the cost, and felt moving through the old house, through the small managed life he had built from the pieces of a harder one, something he had almost convinced himself was gone. He felt certain, not certain the way you are certain about a plan or a calculation. Certain the way you are certain about the right thing. The bone-deep quiet, unargued certainty of a man who has been moving through dark water for a long time and has finally touched the bottom and pushed up toward light. He closed his eyes. He slept. 47 days later, on a Sunday afternoon in late August, with Emma in the garden and the back door open, and Sophia in his kitchen doing what she did now, which was simply existing in the spaces of his life, without apology. Daniel Hayes walked into the kitchen, stood in front of the woman who had called him at 2 a.m. to listen, who had faced his brother-in-law without flinching, who had cried alone on a Sunday morning and then washed her face and called him anyway, who had told an 8-year-old yes without hesitation, when she could have deflected, who had stood on a porch in the rain and answered the question that had lived in him for months. He stood in front of her, and he took out the ring he had been carrying in his jacket pocket for 11 days, waiting for the right moment. And he looked at her, and he said, "I told you I was going to ask. I'm asking." She looked at the ring. She looked at him. She said yes. Just that. Not a speech. Not a performance. Yes. Because she had already said everything there was to say on a rainy night in May, and he had already said everything there was to say in a cafe on a Thursday in October, when he told a stranger to say it again, and Emma had already said everything there was to say on a Saturday morning on the floor of her bedroom when she said it's not complicated, and some things by the time they arrive at their moment have already been fully spoken by the living of them. Daniel Hayes had spent 5 years believing that being a good father was the only thing he was still meant to be. Sophia Miller had spent 27 years being told in all the ways people tell each other things without words that she should be grateful for whatever she could get. They had both been wrong. Not because the world had changed, because they had chosen each other anyway. Imperfect, scared, slow, complicated completely, and love the real kind, the kind that cost something, had turned out to be exactly large enough to hold them both. That was the whole story. And it was only the beginning.